All right, so this is a Glock 17, 9mm full size. Basically, as far as gun safety is concerned, you want to treat every gun as if it's loaded. You don't want to mishandle a gun. You don't want to assume that the gun isn't loaded because, believe it or not, there have been accidents that would happen where someone picks up a gun, not visually inspecting it to see if it's either loaded or unloaded, and then, they accidentally pull the trigger or they pull the trigger and then the gun goes off. Okay, so right now I have the slide locked to the rear, so where you guys can visually inspect it to see whether or not it's loaded and unloaded. You can see here.
Got to make sure it's not loaded. When you pick up a new gun, you basically got to make sure it has no bullets in it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And then you check to see if it's unloaded here. So there's no rounds in the firearm right now. Mm-hmm. As far as gun safety is concerned, like especially if you're on a range, you really don't want to point it in anyone's direction. You always want to make sure it's pointed down range. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do it because I live in an apartment. I have neighbors. So for safety purposes, the gun is going to stay pointed down, okay? Even though it is unloaded. But if we're on a range, you always make sure the gun is either holstered or if it's unholstered, it's pointed down range. You never want to walk around with a loaded firearm and point it in anyone's direction.
Right, basically, unless you're ready to shoot the target, don't point at the target.
Unless you're ready to shoot, do not point that gun anywhere else. Meaning, the gun should be on target. If it's pointed anywhere, it's going to be pointed on target.
Right.
The reason why I say that, because people who haven't handled a gun before, they get excited, and then the next thing you know, they haven't, and then they're turning to you, and then next thing you know, the barrel is pointed
directly at somebody,
directly at you, or directly at someone. So that's poor firearm safety.
Right.
Poor firearm safety. How I was taught is I'm a lefty, so my hand is here. My support hand is here. I have big hands. Because I have big hands, my support hand should literally take up more of the space on my gun. So here, my grip should be loose here. My grip is loose here, but this grips more, just so that I can stay on target better. My finger, my index finger, because I have big fingers as well, I have to take up a little bit more space on the trigger. So my the trigger is lined up with my index finger, probably about here.
Right.
So like I said, not much grip with my left hand. My support hand has most of the grip, or has a tighter grip. And then my trigger finger, like I said, at the lining of the tip of my index finger.
Right, and basically never put your finger on the trigger unless you're ready to shoot. So basically this is the form you're supposed to have.
Basically this is the form that you have. So when we're on the range, if they tell us to stay at a low ready, we're at a low ready. But our finger's not on the trigger. If you're not shooting, your finger's not on the trigger. If you're not shooting, your finger is not on the trigger.
Right.
So always remember that, okay? When you're done shooting, finger comes off. Done shooting, finger comes off. If you're on the range with multiple people, there's gonna be hot brass coming from the injection port. You're gonna get hit with hot casing. So this is good safety, because God forbid your finger is still on the trigger and you get hit with hot brass and it is hot.
You get
startled, you get burned by it, then boom. I don't trust the fact that someone can't make a mistake, because we're human beings. So you want to make sure it's all about training, it's all about repetition.
Right.
When you train this way, it's pretty much generally harder for you to make a mistake.
Right. So if there was like 4 rules to break down for holding a gun, the first one would be if you pick up a gun, always check if it's loaded.
Always check if it's loaded. Always inspect it to see if there's any live rounds in. Always inspect it to see if there's any live rounds in it.
Never point at anything you're not ready to shoot.
Yeah, don't point it at anyone or anything. You know, especially if you're in a range setting, don't point it at anyone. Always have it pointed down on target.
Never put your finger on the trigger unless you're ready to shoot.
Never put your finger on the trigger unless you're ready to shoot. And definitely always make sure you clean your firearm, because a gun that's not cleaned is going to malfunction. You know, these are mechanical tools just like anything else. It's like a car. If you don't clean your engine, your car is going to break down. If you don't clean your gun, you're going to have misfire. You can have misfires. Your gun can jam. Like for me, if I'm in a firefight or I'm in a fight for my life, and the last thing I want is for my gun to jam.
Right.
Okay, so you have to make sure your gun is clean. So you want to inspect it as often as you can, clean it as often as you can. And yeah, if there's 4 rules that I would have, those would be the 4. On the firearm, so you want to make sure your sights are properly aligned. Your rear sights are properly aligned with your front sights.
So right, basically it's like supposed to like line up like.
So.
Right. Like this is supposed to be the center of these two. So it's like a gauge.
Yeah, it's like a gauge. So that way, you know, you have good sight picture.
Perfect.
So that's pretty much proper form. They'll teach you how to gun range.
Cool.
You can YouTube this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos online too, but you know, well, this could be one of those online as well.
It'll be one of those online.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Of course.
Officer Smith. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you too.